Hi, I'm Dedicated Reader and welcome to my first ever video book review. We are going to be reviewing Mel Torrefranca's Nightshade Academy. This is the first in a three-part trilogy series and I am super excited for the rest of these books because this one completely blew me away. You can find the description of the book down below as well as all of my other links, and remember to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. As I mentioned in my welcome video that you can also go back and watch on my channel, I am a co-owner of a book club called Page Turners, and this was our January read of 2024. I also wanted to shout out the author Mel Torrefranca because she owns an indie book publishing company called Lost Island Press that she completely created on her own. And that's huge, not only to be able to publish her own works, but as well as publish the books of other people, which is super cool and massively inspiring. Nightshade Academy is known as a dystopian read. Hunger Games, Ender's Game, that can all be kind of wrapped into that dystopian novel theme. Throughout the course of Nightshade Academy, you're going to spend a lot of time questioning the humanity and the humility of the government, as well as the laws and the structure that they have in place. Especially if you're going on that journey with the main character Yahshi, you're going to experience a lot of his inner turmoil with all of this being raised on this structure, but at the same time not thinking it's right. Found a lot of similarities between the Harry Potter series as well as Nightshade. You have your token trio of Yahshi, Pinto, and Vell, and how they each bring different things to the table. You also have the fact that you're being sent off to a boarding school, which gave me those Hogwarts vibes. Yahshi is a very layered main character. The fact that the book is within his point of view, you get to experience a lot of his internal struggles, his internal feelings, with the decisions and the choices that he has to make, as well as signing contracts and by being selected, and all of that being thrown in there shows the turmoil that he goes through internally. In typical series fashion, the first half of this book is very on the more slower paced side. You're developing relationships with all of these secondary characters. You're realizing kind of where everybody falls in terms of their belief system and the empire. A lot of bonds and alliances are formed between a lot of the different characters in this book, especially since we know that there's a selection happening. So the characters are going to slowly dwindle down into a set number to then go on to the next section of this quote-unquote schooling. The last chapter of part 1 was super intense. My emotions were all over the place. I didn't know what was going to go down. I was completely shocked with the way everything was kind of being thrown around and the chaos that ensued. Part 2, on the other hand, was a massive page turner. I legitimately did not want to put this book down once I hit part 2. I wanted to know what was going to happen next. I was craving that completion, so to speak, even though I knew that it was going to be a series, but still, I wanted the book to end. I was ready for what was going to happen next. To say I went through an emotional roller coaster would be kind of an understatement. There was a lot that happened throughout the course of this book. There was a lot of frustration and anger towards the characters, whether they were secondary or whether I was having these feelings toward Yahshi and his decision making. But at the same time, I felt like I was experiencing the story through his experiences. I was going through the inner turmoil that he was going through, and it was emotionally draining, but at the same time, it was so intense. It was so well written. It really sucked you into those pages. A lot of the characters, whether it was Yahshi or a lot of the secondary characters, were going through some of the toughest challenges that they'll ever experience, especially starting this journey at like 14 to 16 years old. That's crazy traumatic experiences to be going through at such a young age, all because you got selected to go to this amazing school and join the Empire. A lot of things happened throughout the course of part 2, as I mentioned before, and Yahshi's choices changed the trajectory of everything that happens in this book, and a lot of the secondary characters, their lives are altered by the choices that he chooses to make. There's going to be 20 selected students, and out of those 20, 5 are going to carry on further into the academy to then move on into becoming a commander, a doctor, or a researcher. The trio has decided very quickly off the bat, once they become that token trio, that they are going to form an alliance with each other, and they are going to become the 5 to be carried on into the next section of the academy. Throughout the course of the filtration process, a lot of these characters become very close to each other, and they build friendships and bonds and real lifelong relationships that could carry forward if they were all to carry on in the journey of the academy. Now, because we know that that's only a potential opportunity for 5 of those characters, it's really intense to watch these characters be filtered out and then experience those struggles and losing those characters through Yahshi's perspective. For those of you that have read the book, chapter 20 is the last filtration test. This drops the 6 down to 5, and for those 5 to carry on. It was the most intense chapter throughout the whole, actually, I'm gonna backtrack. It was a massively intense chapter, but it may not be the most intense chapter of the book, but it definitely ropes you in for part 2, and you will not want to put this book down. Within chapter 20, we have Yahshi making rash decisions, ruining alliances, ruining bonds, potentially hindering relationships to go further, all because he feels this consistent necessity to have to move on, that he made the commitment, he signed the contract. When he got selected, he needs to carry on. He cannot get filtered. The top 5 then carry on into the next section of the academy, and that brings even harder challenges and hardships to Yahshi. He's experiencing choices that nobody should be forced to make whatsoever. And by doing so, they are taking away his humanity. So he is now making this consistent choice to hold on to that humanity so he doesn't lose it, because that's not something he signed up to do when he signed that contract. He is able to find information about the Empire and the Emperor himself and how they are manipulating their citizens, putting out propaganda and things like that, so then that way the citizens are pretty much accepting to go to war. With all of this information that Yahshi has been able to find, he is quickly realizing that he is in over his head, and that this is not the person that he wants to become or continue to live to be for the next 40 years. He starts looking for an exit strategy and how he can do that with himself intact and not taking anyone down with him. He also begins to learn that there have been other members of the force of the Empire that have questioned the government's decisions and their antics, and that they've known too much and have just mysteriously disappeared. So he's very aware of the repercussions of his actions if he gets caught too early in the midst of creating his exit strategy. It is brought to light that there is a connection between Yahshi's family and the underground, especially that one specific selected student that disappeared because they were also associated with the underground and they were spying. There is a link there, and that makes the force want to bring Yahshi in for questioning. Yahshi understands that his hand is being pushed and that he's going to have to make a decision here to run far sooner than he intended. There he starts his journey to finding the underground, finding his mother, who he learns is alive, and joining their force. Yahshi is given tips from his father as well as other underground members that help keep him hidden throughout the journey to going to the main city to find his mother. While Yahshi is on this journey of finding his mother and going to the city so he can locate her and wanting to join the underground, I was on the edge of my seat. He's essentially a fugitive at this point. The force is everywhere looking for him. He's expecting the Emperor to want his head on a platter. There's all these kinds of situations that are happening, and you're fully on the edge of your seat, hoping that he will make it and hoping that he'll get some closure in all of this and be able to find his mother. Towards the end of his journey, he's within eyesight of the city. He gets cornered in by his fellow graduates from the academy. However, instead of hurting him, they present him with a pardon from the Emperor that will essentially pardon him from all the quote-unquote mistakes he's made. Realistically, it's all the things he's been framed for, and the fact that he's stopped associating with the Force, which is against his contract and a breach of protocol. I was massively concerned throughout the course of this section of the book because the way the author wrote it made it truly seem that Yahshi was going to go back. He was going to go back to the Force. He was going to find a new exit strategy. He was going to find a new way to run. This is all his internal dialogue and kind of the chaos that is going on in his head when he's deciding if he's going to take this pardon or not. Ultimately, there is a huge aha moment at this point where Yahshi understands that he was always given a choice. He just needs to be willing to accept the consequences that come with going against the grain, going against the Force, going against the Emperor and the Empire itself. As long as he's willing to understand that that outcome may potentially be death at some points, he still has a choice in the matter. There's a point where he specifically says, "It's all my choice. It always has been." And that was a huge moment as a reader to realize, not only personally do I always have a choice, but that he is really coming to terms with the fact that the Empire is not to blame for his actions, he is to blame for his actions. The fact that he signed that contract when he was selected, the fact that he carried out all of these challenges, he can't blame the Empire for forcing him to do that when he always had the choice to leave. He just had to be strong enough and brave enough and have the courage to actually do it. At this moment in time, he decides to tell everyone, all of his fellow graduates and their commanders, that this is the truth of the government that you're serving. This is the truth of the Empire that you're part of. And he tells them everything. Like, there is no holds barred. All of it is laid out on the table. Naturally, chaos completely breaks out once Vell realizes that the government has been manipulating her into all of this, and that she has an underlining full-fledged belief in Yahshi and the truths that he's now spilling. She loses it. She goes through a breakdown, attempts to hurt her commander. Essentially, we're going to assume, because it's never fully disclosed, that she did manage to off her commander. There is slight moments at this point where the other graduates are kind of choosing sides, but we don't get to learn the full outcome of the repercussions of those actions. I'm really hoping that that's going to be coming in book 2. Vell flees with Yahshi and they continue on their journey. They get to Asterius City. I think that's what it's called. I'm going off of memory right now, so don't quote me on it. But they get to that city, and there Yahshi explains the story of Prince Runix and how he was 2 years old and he died because his palace was ablaze, and that is blamed on the underground. How the hit was essentially put out on the family by the Emperor, and that the Emperor is the reason that Prince Runix is no longer with us and ruling. They make it to the city. Yahshi finds his mother. There's a bit of a reunion. He realizes that he has a brother who's kind of a little bit of a piece of work, but I'm hoping that that will iron out as the series progresses and they'll form a cool sibling bond. At this point, it feels like there was so much happening all at once that my brain is going a mile a minute. Like, not only does, this whole crap happen with all the fellow graduates, and then the commander dying, and then, him and Vell running, all of this stuff is happening right after one another, and it's like, oh my gosh, and my brain doesn't know how to process it all. But then we find his mother, then we find his brother, and then we get to the very end of the book, and I know deep down that a good series has a really good cliffhanger ending, but I was just hoping that it would just be kind of like a low-key ending, and it would be like, okay, cool, because I have so many questions. There's so many things left unsaid that I'm really hoping are going to get answered throughout book 2 and 3. But I would be okay with kind of a pretty happy ending. He found his mom, he found out he has a brother, let's leave it at that. But no, this author had to blow you away by dropping some of the most fundamentally massive information throughout the whole course of this book. Book closes out with readers
finding out that Yahshi from the very beginning was Prince Runix and that he never actually died. What? So I am definitely looking forward to book 2 and how the author is going to answer these questions throughout the rest of the series, as well as where it's going to go from here now that we know that Prince Runix is alive and he's present and that he could potentially rule and overthrow the empire. Like, all of these questions are going through my brain. So I cannot wait for book 2. Thank you so much for sitting with me and listening to my book review on Nightshade Academy, the first of the Belladonna series by Mel Torrefranca. I am so stoked for the next 2 books. Like, I cannot wait till the end of the year when hopefully book 2 will drop. If you are interested in listening to more of my reviews, make sure that you like, subscribe, notification, I don't know, do all the YouTube stuff so then that way you know when my next review drops. Thank you so much for sitting with me, and please, please go read Nightshade Academy by Mel Torrefranca. This was a 4 out of a 5-star read for me, so I definitely recommend it. I don't think you'll be disappointed.